Sounds good. Good morning, everybody. Today we have Brownell Landrum on the show. Brownell is an author, inventor, songwriter, and explorer of metaphysical mysteries. Welcome, Brownell.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
It's good to have you here. You're a difficult person to keep up with. You had told me you were in Central Africa, but then I saw you were in Georgia, and then you were in Colorado. You've been all over the place.
Yeah, I've for the last year and a half, I've been living kind of a nomadic life, and trying to figure out where I'm gonna end up. So right now I'm in Tunisia.
Very nice. I know about Tunisia. There's a jazz song called "A Night in Tunisia" from the 1950s.
I want to. I listened to one of your shows, and you were talking about a Frank Sinatra song that I had never heard before. And I was like, wait a minute, how can I not know this Frank Sinatra about something about God? But
That's
you've
what
got
God looks like.
yeah, yeah. And I was like, okay, Steve's got to be a cool guy. If he's going to turn me on to new music, then that's got to be it. Because my dad was such a huge Sinatra fan, and that kind of made me a huge Sinatra fan. And but that was a song I did not know. So you introduced me to something new there. But so yeah, there is I have heard that there's a song about Tunisia, but yeah, that's where I am right now. I've got my blinds closed, but the Mediterranean is right there, right in front of me. So it's pretty.
Very nice, man. I've never been to Africa before. I'm scared to go. How is it there?
I wouldn't be scared at all. It's beautiful. I mean, it's just beautiful. It's super affordable, which is a big reason I'm here. And it's very close to Europe. I'm sure we'll probably go back and whatever questions you want to ask me about my wildlife, but I was going to go to Italy for a year and couldn't get a visa. And I could tell you the preamble to all of that if you want, but um, and within the EU, you can go for 3 months as a traveler, but you have to leave for 3 months. So I had to find somewhere else to go. And I looked at Tunisia. I'd actually been to a talk on Tunisia a number of years ago. And so that got me intrigued. And I looked at Tunisia, and it was like 90 miles from Sicily, which people don't necessarily realize. And super gorgeous luxury resorts are like, I mean, depending on when you're here, like it's a lot more expensive this month, but I was here in the winter and it was like $700 for 3 weeks with 2 meals a day.
Wow. And I was reading or watching you used to speak fluent Italian.
I used to is
You
it
didn't
was
get
the
it back?
I tried really hard. When I went to Italy, I spent hundreds of hours trying to do Babel and audio things, and I guess I don't have that brain synapse or something there. And I will say that I didn't try to immerse myself. I was finishing writing doing the literally the end, writing the end of a novel trilogy I'd been working on for years, and so I was spending a lot of time in my room, I rented a condo. So I wasn't necessarily going out and about meeting Italians as much as I should have, but it was hard.
I know it's very hard especially when you get older. Like, your mind is not like clay like when you're a child.
It's exactly right. I mean, it is exactly that because when you're younger, especially if you learn any language up until like the age of 6 or 10 or whatever the age is, you build those synapses in the brain and they're there so that you can learn other languages pretty easily if you've got that synapse. But if you don't, it's hard to build it. And it's hard to regrow it, I guess, it's been a while since college.
I
So.
heard that if you fall asleep with a foreign station on, it helps. It gets into your head while you're sleeping at night.
I did that too. In fact, this is embarrassing, but I'm going to go ahead and you'll tease me. So I was actually listening to like romantic, men talking to me in Italian, thinking if that's not going to get my interest. It sounded good because that was one of the things that was interesting about living there, though, is that not knowing the language like I should have, I'd walk down the street and it would sound like music. I mean, it was such a beautiful language. It was just like, wow, I just heard these people talking and it was just so gorgeous. I just didn't know what they were saying.
I
Um,
heard that if you know Spanish, that you can converse with somebody who's Italian. That's what I heard.
Spanish was the language I took in high school, and then I took Italian in college, and they are a lot alike, but in a kind of a bad way because you mix words, right? You're thinking, is this an Italian word or it's not different enough for you to remember the differences. But I think I could maybe relearn Spanish easier. I don't know.
Maybe
Uh,
try simply, simple words.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I learned a lot of words. It was just didn't all connect like it had before. So, and I even had a tutor when I first got there. I mean, I tried really hard. But I found out after I left that they have like a week-long immersive class where you can just go on a trip with people and you're just stuck in. And I thought that's probably what I should have done. Just force myself to spend a week
Yeah,
and
if you go into a country and it's all they speak, you're forced to pick it up.
Yeah, and if you're really like you're with people for a week doing nothing but learning the language and talking to people, then you don't have a choice, right? Because you can get around with just speaking English really well. You can do pretty much all you want to do with Google Translate and English, but that's not immersive like if you were in a week and everybody's going to dinner and they're talking and they're taking you classes all day and like everything is like that. So I don't know. We'll see.
It's like a puzzle. You just got to know one word, and if you have that one word, sometimes you can improvise and figure out what the rest of what they're talking about is.
That was one thing I learned that now I'm not going to remember it right, but any word in our language that ends in ion, like vacation, then it would be vacazione. They would have like there was one guy that's like, now here's 1,000 words you just learned. You take any ion word and you add iona, ione, and then he like quickly said, and here's the past tense and the future tense or whatever. So I did learn that, but then that's not,
Yeah, the
you don't walk around
conjugation.
going, how many ion words do you know?
No, exactly. I mean, conjugation is difficult too.
Yeah,
Conjugation of verbs. So
yes.
your latest book is We Meet Again. Is that your latest novel out right now?
That's my latest novel. They came out about 6 months ago, and it's a trilogy. It's this epic reincarnation mystery about a famous couple reincarnated to fulfill a prophecy that'll change the world. So it's kind of like a Da Vinci Code meets Outlander type of thing. And a lot of it's set in Italy, which is why I went to Italy. So there's my little spoiler on that. The famous couple is an Italian couple from history. But my latest book actually is this book that I just came out with. It's called The Hero's Playbook. And I don't know if you can see, but it's like all these activities to help people to help bring out the hero in you. And it's either for writers who want to write the hero's journey. Are you familiar with the Joseph Campbell, the whole monomyth, the hero with 1,000 faces, all of that stuff?
It's interesting. The interview that you were watching, that gentleman is big on Joseph Campbell. And I took a course in that in humanities in college. So I have some familiarity with Joseph Campbell. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So what basically I did is I took the Christopher Vogler version, if you know that, because he narrows it down to 12 steps instead of 18. Um, and he wrote something called The Writer's Journey, which is basically how you take that story and turn it into a writing. Um, and then I took the 12 steps because the 18 was just a little cumbersome. And so if you're writing a story, it's really, really helpful because it can take you through all the steps of how to figure out what your hero is going to do and what's their journey going to be. But it's also really great for self-development. I'm right now I'm working on the mentor's manual so that people can coach people using this program, this book. So that's kind of my latest thing.
Okay. So you're working a lot of, and I see you're also, I saw one of your songs, The Yellow Taxi. You play the guitar beautifully.
No, no, that wasn't me.
Oh, no? I thought that was you.
No, I'd like to. I wish. No, I wish. I tried learning guitar and it hurt my fingers too much. I was such a wimp. No, the only my songwriting is kind of weird. My brother is a professional composer, so and he scored movies and he worked on the Twin Peaks music. If you remember the Twin Peaks TV show,
In the
um,
90s.
yeah, yeah. And he was scoring well, he and I wrote a song for my dad's memorial. And he was scoring a film, just a little tiny film. It's kind of an interesting story. He was scoring this film and he said, "Can we use this? You know, is it okay to use the song that we wrote for the end credits of the movie?" And that was in 2015. That movie came out, and then 2020, COVID hit, and all of a sudden, that little movie went on YouTube and got 500,000 views in 2 weeks. Like, boom, all these people. So I start getting these little checks from from the music. I like to laugh and say I made more money as a songwriter than a screenwriter, but that's not necessarily saying much.
Well, it's nice that you made some money doing what you enjoy doing, you know?
I did. And I've co-written a bunch of songs with him, and I'll write the lyrics and he'll write the music. And I've actually written two musicals. So if they ever get produced, that would be really fun. But I have written two songs with the music and lyrics. So I do consider, that's like a full songwriter if you can write both the music and lyrics.
And that amazed me because you have a business and advertising background, yet you're a creative.
Yeah, well, I mean, advertising is creative. I mean, that was kind of, I think, why I got into it. But yeah, I do have that kind of left brain MBA kind of background too. So
Are you left-handed?
I'm not. I'm
Oh, okay.
not.
This novel, we meet again. The main characters, they were a nun and a priest in the 1930s,
Yeah, yeah,
and
you
now
did your
and now
research.
they are romantically involved.
Yeah, it starts out with a present day couple who meet, and they start having these weird flashback kind of memories of being a nun and a priest in the 1930s in Brazil, and they're protecting this precious artifact, this painting that from nefarious sources, which you can imagine who was looking for artwork in the 1930s, and some of it was sent to South America, and so it's the modern day couple start having these memories. So it's kind of like you follow the couple. This is the first book, the couple in the current day, and then the couple back then, and then the mystery all kind of ties together. And then in the second book, they have a past life in the late 1500s in Austria, and then they go to England, they meet Shakespeare and all kinds of fun stuff. And so it goes back to, and then of course the famous couple, they find out that they were the famous couple, which was from a few hundred years before that. So yeah,
Reminds
it's
you
kind
of
of,
Raiders. Reminds you of the Raiders of the Lost Ark a little too.
yeah. Well, I like that comparison. I can dig that.
There's actually a case right now. I don't know if you're familiar with the Doomsday Cult mom in Arizona and Idaho.
No, I don't know that.
There's a woman and her husband. They're charged. Well, they've been convicted of several murders, and they said they've had several past lives, and they knew each other. And
Oh,
everybody around them has been dropping dead. And uh, she's on. She's been convicted of a few murders, and she's on trial for other murders. And he was convicted. He's on death row now.
wow. I'll have to look at that. That's pretty creepy because I mean the truth is, it doesn't matter to me. I like to write about reincarnation a lot, and I think that it opens up people's minds. And I think what it does is it breaks down a lot of barriers because all of a sudden you can realize like how could you be racist if you were that race in another lifetime? I mean, or against a particular country or a particular religion. I mean, we've kind of been all of them. Like what the song, the lyric from one of the songs that I wrote that I said I wrote the music and lyrics. Is the soul has no gender, no creed, and no race. Love can be found in any face, right? So generally, not always, but generally a belief in reincarnation would be like, you're worried about your karma, so why would you do those kind of evil things that you're talking about?
Well, they had this system of 0 to 10. They felt that certain people were zombies, and if they went down to zero, they were dark. Their souls were dark, and the only way to free them was to kill them.
Oh, so they're pretty
Okay.
twisted.
Yeah, but then they would collect the insurance money and stuff. So I don't know. It's all over the news. If you watch Law and Crime Network and Court TV, it's all they ever talk about this case.
Okay. Well, they don't have that in Tunisia, but I still have to. I can probably internet Google it.
You don't have.
But
I must mention. I'm sure that not everybody who looks at past lives is evil. Do you have memories of your own past lives?
I do. I do have for a number of them. And the other thing that I think is really interesting too, is because I like to look at the between lives, and I don't know if you're familiar with the Michael Newton books, Journey of Souls and Destiny of
No.
Souls. Ever heard of those? Um, uh, uh, Totally life changing because what he does is he looks at what happens in between lives and what's it like on the other side and what do we do when we're not here. And that's also super eye-opening. I mean, like if I had my blinds open, there are all these beautiful clouds, and I really think there's somebody up there, like they're painting sunsets, and there's just like so many different things that we can do when we're not here. We can be greeting new souls when they come over. We can be, painting sunsets, all kinds of stuff. So yeah, so kind of all of the above.
Some people, maybe it was you who said that that if you don't have any memories of previous lives, this could be your first life now.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So you must have listened to one of my children's books. Is that?
It could. I looked at so much of your material. I have so much notes in you to go through. So it could have been you. It could have been somebody else. I just remember
Yeah,
reading
no,
them.
I do have that. I have a children's book that's called "This Isn't My First Time," and it's on the Life is a Trip podcast, an audio recording. So if you listen to that, you would have heard me reciting that story. And if and one of the verses is, if you can't remember, don't worry, don't strife. That might just be saying this is your first life. Don't Something like it's all just a quest, a way for your soul to become its best. So it does talk about the first verse of that is this isn't my first time. Of that I'm sure. I've taken this trip and been on this tour. The scenery's different, the people are too, but green is still green and blue is still blue. If I try really hard, I just might recall my life before I was born so small. So that's the beginning of that one. That's probably what you heard.
Probably. And have parents been buying this book for their children?
Well, if it was a book, they would, but I don't have it published yet.
Oh,
I started to publish it, and then I ran into some troubles with the publishing of um, the hardback because if you're going to do a children's book, you want to have it hardback and all that stuff. So I ended up taking it out of publication. But it was funny because somebody in my Life as a Trip Facebook group reached out to me. He's like, "No, I saw your book. I bought it in the bookstore in London." I'm like, "I don't know how that happened." And it was available for, a very short period of time, but I guess somebody picked it up. So I'm still hoping to find a publisher for that. And let's, cross our fingers and let that happen.
well, today we don't even need publishers. You could just self-publish on Amazon.
Well, yes, but the children's books are harder. The hardcover children's books with color, it's a whole different kind of animal. But yeah, I mean, I've self-published. I wanted to get all with the Meet We Meet Again trilogy. I wanted to get them all out at once. I didn't want to have to go through traditional publishing and wait another year and then wait another year and so I wanted to get them out at once. So I did self-publish that. And you can get those in paperback. And this, you know, is only available in paperback. So yeah, you can do that. But um anyway, so yeah. So
Nice. And I see you like to ski in the winter and hike in the summer.
yeah, I did. I used to live in Aspen, Colorado, up until about 2 years ago, although I went back a little bit last year. And that was a nice life. I mean, I didn't ski the last couple of years I was there because I just got busy. And skiing takes up a lot of time. But I did quite a bit of skiing when I was there.
You saw Lady Gaga walking in front of your house one morning, right?
You got it all. Yeah. Yeah, that was so funny. I'm looking out the front. And Aspen was kind of funny. Like when I first moved there, I met a friend and she said, let me just tell you something about Aspen. She said, you can be walking down the street and you see somebody who looks like a homeless person and it's Ringo Starr. you know, she's like, so just be on the alert because you never know who you're going to run into. And this was that summer of 2023, so 2 years ago. And I'm looking out the front patio and, over my, not patio, but, the front door. And I see this woman. I'm like, and they say, like, if you see somebody that looks famous, they are in Aspen. Like, it's not like, okay, you're not, that's not them. It's like, it's more likely them than not. And so I'm looking at, I'm like, that looks like Lady Gaga. And she's walking her dog. And she's also with a very tall man that was probably a bodyguard, I guess, although you don't really need one in Aspen. Unless you get to encounter the bears. That was the only real danger in Aspen. We had a bear that slept in the tree in our front yard for like 4 hours, this huge bear on this like branch that I couldn't have balanced on in this massive bear is up there. Anyway, yeah, I looked down and I thought, that looks like Lady Gaga. And so I look up, and yes, that was her kind of dog. Yes, she was in town, and then there were all these other Gaga sightings, after that. But I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, I've driven to Colorado and I never really stopped up there. There's a beautiful like little villages. You can see them from the highway. They light up the skiing villages.
Yes,
It's almost
yeah.
picturesque, almost like Disney, you know?
Well, and the thing that was so beautiful about it, just living in the mountains in the winter, is that it's so bright at night because the snow on the mountains, everything is so bright. Any lights, reflect off the snow. So, I mean, you feel really safe walking home at night. It could be midnight, and except for the bears that you'd have to maybe look out for, depending on the time of the year. It was bright, and I love that.
And that's one, I think it's one of your websites, 365 days in Aspen.com.
Yeah, that's right. So I chronicled my first year there.
So you're there for 365 days.
I was there for 7 years, but but
Oh,
I
wow.
remember. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
I
I
did I did love it in a lot of ways. I mean, it's a great place to, especially in the summer. It's like everything.
it's on September 17th, 2016, in your entry, you felt guilty about a tree being knocked down. A tree was blocking the mountain, and you kind of wished that tree would go away. And then they actually tore the tree down, and you felt bad. You felt you brought bad karma to the tree.
Oh yeah, there was in my it was a cypress tree, which was really beautiful. And they were building a house across the street. I lived in a condo building, tiny little condos, as you could probably imagine. Um, but I could literally, it was a condo, it was like kind of a loft thing. So I had a bedroom and a loft, but I had a view of the mountain. Like I could lay in bed and watch when they did fireworks on the mountain. I could lay in bed and watch the fireworks. So it was pretty good. But so it was a prime location, but tiny little space, but that's okay. But they were building a house across the street. Yeah, I forgot I even wrote about this. You're really good on your research. But there was a cypress tree and it was blocking my view of the mountain because it was so tall. And they were constructing, and then all of a sudden they're doing the constructing of this $30 million house across the street. And then all of a sudden it was gone. I was like, uh-oh, did I wish it bad luck on that tree?
That's not uncommon. I think a lot of us deep thinkers, we think that way too. We feel guilty, we feel responsible for things.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so you're not alone in that kind of thinking.
yeah. I can tell you're that kind for sure.
Yeah, it hurts sometimes. You can really eat yourself
Yeah,
away.
yeah. I mean, it does. If you start taking responsibility. I mean, what some people say. It's ignorance is bliss or something, because sometimes the people who don't know better don't realize what they're doing. So
Yeah, I watch a lot of people, they're just kind of wrapped up. They have tunnel vision and they don't think about things a lot. So,
yeah.
yeah. And then I think it was was your podcast January 15th of this year, you talked about Jax from the Reality of Unity by V. M. Elise, a utopian world where people live harmoniously.
Yeah, that's the Life is a Trip podcast is not like yours. It's not an interview show. It's where people share stories. So if anybody has a story that's a reincarnation, metaphysical, spiritual, afterlife, near-death experience type of story, and we had one of the members of the group write a story about this utopian world, and so we took an excerpt from that and we put it on the podcast.
Yes, and where people live in harmony with nature and with each other.
Yeah, it's really beautiful.
It's a
And
beautiful concept.
yeah, and I wrote a screenplay and I'm writing the book version of a middle grade story about a utopian world. Very different from hers, but then, in some ways similar. I think that we've kind of had enough dystopia. I think maybe we need to look at some possible utopian worlds.
I think we've always been dystopian, really. If you look back 2,000 years ago with the Crusades and the Holocaust and all the horrible things, I think people have always been people, really. I don't know if God designed us to be this way as a test or whether we went
I
all wrong.
Yeah, I don't know how deep you want to go on that. I'm sure you probably know because you've done all your research, but my first book is 5 Reasons Why Bad Things Happen. And and it when people say everything happens for a reason, I say, yeah, I wrote the book on it. Um, I never would believe, and other people can believe what they want to believe, so I don't want to tell anybody what to believe, but I never believe that anybody deliberately comes to Earth to be evil or to do bad things. I think that what happens, and I describe it in the book, is, and I think where evil comes from is when we separate ourselves from their soul. Basically, if you could imagine, you have a soul that chooses a body to become us for each lifetime, and you don't have to believe in reincarnation to still believe that you have a soul that was here before you were born and will last after you die. Um, and that's kind of three selves, whether you call that id, ego, super ego, or conscious, subconscious, superconscious. The body is the subconscious, and that was a big revelation for me when I realized that. Um, and the body lives in this world of the earth, and we're in this, the part of the dynamic of earth is survival of the fittest. And so when you separate yourself consciously from your higher part of your nature, your higher self, your spiritual self, then you can get caught up in that survival of the fittest in a way that becomes very dark and competitive. And even what I call social Darwinism, because Darwinism basically says those who are physically, emotionally, or intellectually stronger will survive over those who are weaker. And when the planet was designed, that made sense. But what happened is that when people feel weak, this is what I call social Darwinism. They feel they need to subjugate somebody in order to feel strong. So that's where evil comes from, is when, your spiritual self wouldn't do that. But but when you separate from that and you just get caught up in this competitive nature of this planet, that's when that happens. And I do think we can come here and go, okay, I need to learn this lesson, or I signed up, for this experience or whatever. So we can go through that. So I don't know how deep you want to go, but I don't believe anybody comes here and says, oh, I'm going to be a murderer next lifetime. That'll be fun. I've never seen any near-death experience or any life between life experience where people go transition the other side and go, oh, wow, it was a really good, fill in the blank. Like, I just never see that. So that's my little world I live in, I guess.
No, it makes sense. A lot of childhood wounds. Sometimes you're not given enough love as a child, or you're given too much love and you're spoiled.
Yes, right, right. It can go either way. In fact, I'm sure you're probably going to ask about my stories, the end, a love story to the universe. And in the part two and part three of those stories, there is a lot of discussion of childhood wounds and how relationships will bring that out and test us in those kinds of ways, for sure.
You also have another book out called 50 Shades Deeper with powerful messages.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people. It's like I think the subtitle of that is, sometimes the most surprising messages can be wrapped in, unusual packages or something. Um, I had a Facebook group. I still have it, but it's not active. But when those books were out, we got into talking about the 50 Shades books, about how many deeper messages there were in those books. And I mean, if you really think about it, talk about childhood abuse. I mean, I don't know if you know the books, but he was severely, abused as a child, and what he had to deal with and how that created who he was. All these, there were so many layers of that. So what I did on that book, it's kind of an anthology where the members of the group, we just took our questions and shared our answers, of how the group. So we basically collectively wrote that book, from the all our discussions in the group.
Oh, that's nice. You work together on the book.
Yeah, yeah. And even Erica, or E.L. James, the author, is quoted, and she's in the group. So she was part of it too. She's a Facebook friend.
It's a hidden message when things happen, and it might seem bad, but it might be a gift. It might be something opening a door to a new route for you in life.
Yes, yes. And to give you the kind of the punchline on the 5 reasons why bad things happen, they all happen in order to get us to change something. So if that's the big reason why, right? Whatever the other 5 reasons are, And one of them is, that it's a blessing in disguise, like you're saying. But it's what needs to change, something in your life. It's like, and sometimes I like to laugh and say, like, sometimes it feels like border collies that are just knocking you in the side to get you to go a direction and you don't want to go. Sometimes we have to be pushed down another path that we should be going and we are not going. And sometimes bad things happen to get us to do that.
It makes me think of, for example, of Christopher Reeve, who had a horrible accident, but then he became a spokesman and a leader. And I went, was that meant to be? And where is he in this life? It
Yeah.
was a horrible thing that happened to him, but yet he impacted so many people.
Exactly, exactly. And I mean, if you want to go back to talking, hero's journey, and the one of the there's all, in order to tell a good story, just from a storytelling standpoint, the hero has to be tested and go through obstacles and pushed pretty far to get to be a hero, right? The protagonist to transition to be a hero. And that's true with us in real life, right? I mean, we might think, oh, I want an easy life. I want everything to come to me easily. From a storytelling standpoint, that's a boring story, right? And from a life standpoint, I was talking to a friend the other day about, I do think we kind of sign up for certain lessons, like you're saying, and but from the point of view of the other side, or what I call the upstairs, we're like, I think we have a little amnesia, like how bad it could be, but we go, well, that'd be fun to go through that challenge. Like that would be really interesting. But when we're here, like, no, I don't want that problem. He wouldn't have chosen that for anything. But you're right. Made him this huge hero. I mean, he went from being a, actor, playing a superhero to being a real life inspiration for so many people. So yeah,
He
absolutely.
really, and his the Christopher and Dana Reeve Institute still continue in New Jersey, and his
Oh yeah.
webinar every month, because I'm on their email list, and I think his son Matthew Reeve is a newscaster, and he made a documentary about his mother and his father.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's really beautiful.
Yeah, and I think you had a vision that you were like a Stephen Hawkins in your previous life. Was he you?
No, 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 no. What I had a story idea. And that no, not myself. Well, I mean, I had a past life where I died of starvation in prison, and had a frail body and stuff. But I did have a really interesting vision. It was when I lived in Aspen, and there was a guy that used to hike up the mountain. I used to hike up a particular mountain pretty much every day. And he had this, and for 9 months of the year, he would go up the mountain shirtless, right? And he had all I mean, he was definitely like a romance cover, model. Um, but it was so funny about him is that he was just like, it wasn't like, aren't I great? It was more like, isn't this great? Like, this is great having this body. Like, I love having this. He just had this energy that was so, so lovely. And so one day I stopped him because I had an idea for a story and I started sketching it out of somebody who had been like a Stephen Hawking in a previous lifetime, who next time is like, I want a strong, healthy, I want a different body next go around. And I almost and so I told him, I said, I kind of wrote a story inspired by you, like, because again, his energy wasn't, and in fact, in the story, also wrote that the person that was his wife, and soulmate in that story had been his wife before, and in this lifetime, she's nothing particularly physical to look at, right? So you'd look at them and think mismatched couple, but if you know their history in a previous lifetime, then they were devoted, and she took care of him, and and they were in love. Not Stephen Hawking, but in the story. And but that this time he's like, and I love that whole idea because it's like we use so many opportunities in this life to judge others based on superficial stuff. And then you realize, I mean, he took care of his body. Obviously, his name was Andre, and I got to be friends with him. But because I did stop him one day. I was like, I got to tell you this story. But it was just that attitude, like, this is great. Like, this is just great, that I just thought was such a fun inspiration.
I believe in mind programming, that before you die, if you can, just kind of program your mind to where you're going to go. and that's where your mind will go when you die.
I think that's true to a point. I mean, I think that you do probably conjure what you expect, you know. Um, there's a funny story in one of the Michael Newton books. I think it's Destiny of Souls, though, that I love, where this guy was a hellfire and brimstone preacher in his past life, and he made people afraid of hell, and he, breathed this fire and into all these people, and all this stuff. And so and then he dies, and the devil greets him, and he's face to face with the devil, right? And he's face in front, like the things he threatened other people with. And then a little while later, his guide takes his mask off and says, "Ha ha ha! You deserve that for the way you treated people." And and then he went through kind of a normal transition of, meeting his spirit guides, and and all of that. So, I mean, I one of the things I love about the podcast that I have, because it's the stories are fictional or factual, right? So we don't judge, and we like to have the more varied stories that we can have. I like different points of view. Like, somebody asked me the other day, well, are we in a reincarnation trap and we're not able to get out and we're just forced to keep coming back? I was like, no, I hope not. That doesn't make sense in my world, but I don't want to proselytize. I like to hear what other people think.
Well, that's keeping an open mind because nobody, there's so many different recipes, and not everybody, not there's not one solution. I think it's all interpretations.
Right, right. And I think the more it opens up your mind more, it's like traveling, right? And we think that we know our world, and then all of a sudden you meet people. Like, I had an experience here a few weeks ago, and I burned my hand on the soup. And I mean, it hurt. I thought, nothing happened to my hand, but boy, I thought it was, really. And then I found out from one of the local Tunisians that tomatoes are good for burns. I had never heard that before. And it's like, yeah, the lycopene in tomatoes are really good for burns and sunburns or any kind of burn. Have you heard that before?
No, no, I guess in that part of the world, they have more sun exposure. They need to be aware of that.
I don't know, but I just thought, isn't that fun to learn something that is scientific? It might have been their old wives' tale or whatever, but is a scientific thing. But that's when you learn, especially when you travel, you start seeing things from a different perspective, and and it opens up your mind to, my little world needs to open up.
What have you been to any other countries besides Italy and Africa?
Yeah, I went to I did a couple of side trips, and when I say trips, I mean that in a couple of different definitions of the word. Side trips to Barcelona. And when I say trips, I actually went to do a Bufo trip. Are you familiar with that?
You mentioned that it's some kind of a drug you don't recommend it taking without doctor's orders, and it opens up a transmitters in your mind.
Yeah, yeah, you did the research. Yeah, it's I definitely say don't do it if it's not legal. Like, don't, because it's serious medicine. And you've got to know who you're with and trust. And so in Barcelona it's legal, medically supervised, and also really affordable compared to, like, anywhere that you can. In the US you have to go to Costa Rica for $10,000, something crazy. So I went to do that, and it opens up your neurotransmitters of the brain. It, from a scientific standpoint, it's helping people with Alzheimer's, with PTSD, with addictions, because it literally opens up the neurotransmitters. So the things you took for granted as habits, you're now thinking differently. You're opening up opportunities. It was a trip. It was
They
a nice
say the
trip.
same thing about psilocybin.
Yes, and I lived in Colorado, as I mentioned, and the microdosing is legal there. And I could have pursued that, but I didn't want. One of the things I liked about Bufo is a 20-minute high. Now it feels like it lasts forever because you lose concept of time. I won't say forever, but it doesn't feel like 20 minutes. It feels like longer because so much is happening. But I don't think I want to do something like that every day. I don't think I want to do something like ayahuasca that lasts for hours. The last time I did pot legally in Colorado, I did an edible and I was like, I want it over with. Well, I want it to be over with. Like, I just wanted it over. So, but I mean, I think I do know there's a lot of really great science to that.
Yeah, and I don't blame you for not wanting to walk around that every day. This is not 1969 Woodstock, you know. And I'll teach you a little trick. Whenever you're having a bad trip, just take some Benadryl or keep a bottle of liquor nearby. That will get rid of the paranoia right away.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, you know what I tell people if they're going to do bufo legally, um, is when you're breathing in the medicine, breathe in love and breathe it in with the knowledge that whatever you're going to experience is coming from love. Um, some people, and there was a guy in our group who had done it before and had a pretty traumatic experience with it. He relived being raped. And he came out of it and he's like, he had been suppressing that memory and it had been haunting him and hurting him. So it was the best thing that could have ever happened to him because he came out of that. He's like, he's freed from it. He actually prosecuted the person who did it. I mean, he took action. He was able to cure and heal that trauma. But he went through kind of a trauma in the bufo. And but I say, and I was when I was breathing in the medicine, I said to myself and said, to the medicine energy or whatever, I know this is coming from love, and I'm going to trust that even if it's a hard place, you're taking me there out of love for me to learn and grow and feel more love. Um, and if you do that, I think you can go in with the good intention and good energy and trust. So
Yeah,
that's
and like
my
you said, medical professionals, I don't want anybody out there getting bad ideas. I don't want anybody being hurt, you know. So
Definitely.
definitely.
No, I mean, really, really, really don't do it. I mean, you can watch some YouTube videos of some experiences people did with people they didn't know. They just went down to Mexico and like, oh, I can do a bufo over here. And please, please don't do it illegally. Don't. You don't know what you're getting. You don't know who you're around. You don't know because you're not in control of your body during those 20 minutes. And the horror stories. And for me, knowing that the doctors and they were looking out for me, they had really great facilitators. They knew what they were doing, and I'm forever grateful for it. It was amazing.
Your book, Five Reasons Why Bad Things Happen. Are you familiar with a book called When Bad Things Happen to Good People?
Yeah, in fact, it's an interesting question that you asked me because I actually met Harold Kushner, Rabbi Kushner, who wrote that book. And lovely, just beautiful man, a beautiful man. This was probably, I think, 2008 that I met him because I'd written that in 2006. And he graciously agreed to read my book. And so I sent it him. And he came back and he said, I don't think things happen for a reason. He just doesn't. He thinks it's random. And what that led me to, and I would have loved to have debated, like, put us on a stage and have a debate about that, not in a hostile way, but just two different points of view that are so different. But what it did was it led me to do some more research and there's some really beautiful research that says that people who believe things happen for a reason are happier than those who don't.
Yeah, you have to have some. I mean, he lost a son, I believe. That's what
Yeah.
happened to him. So when you
Yes.
you have to have some justification, some purpose. Like Adam Walsh, I think his father, John Walsh, America's Most
Yes.
Wanted. He took a
Yeah.
tragedy like Harold Kushner, and he found a calling.
Yeah, right. And so if he had thought that it could have happened for a reason, I understand. Trust me, I understand. He could go, no way did I cause that myself. And I don't say you caused it, right? I'm just saying it happened for a reason. And that reason is to get you to do something. It got him to write his book, right? And his book gave a lot of comfort to a lot of people, also helped him, in his life. Um, so, and I just had loved seeing the research that said, when you believe that, then you believe you have a little more control over your life. If you believe it's all random, then how do you know that something could just happen? And even if something could just happen, something could fly through this window right now. I could still know, okay, there's something I can take from this to help me going forward. And if it was just like random, then I'd be like, I never know anything. So it was an interesting dichotomy, looking at how he looked at the life and how I did.
You know if he's still alive?
I doubt it, but I don't know.
It
I
was
haven't questioned.
17 years ago, and I think wrote that book late 1970s. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, yeah, he was elderly then, so I would doubt it. But honestly, I should know, but I
I
don't.
wonder where he is and if he got to meet his son again.
I will guarantee that, but that's just my belief system, right? That and that he was like, wow, he got to see all the people he helped, because I believe that when you go through the life review, you don't just go through from your own perspective, but you go through from the perspective of all the people you encountered. And if you did a lot of really beautiful things, can you imagine how lovely that would be, you
Oh,
know?
that'll be nice. But do they have faces? Are they like what are we? What is our existence? Are we just blank souls? Are we birds? What kind of images are we?
Well, I think you could probably, like you said, you can kind of envision it any way you want, but I think we would probably, when we're new souls or newly returned, we'll see them how we saw them. They say a lot of those stories, people like, oh, I might look a lot younger or might not have this scar or might not have, have a thinner body or whatever that we might think we wanted. But you'll recognize the people. I mean, eventually it is all energy, right? And it's a vibrational energy, and we don't have eyes, but we can certainly see. That's one of the things I think is so fascinating are the people who are blind who have near death experiences and they're able to see. They can actually see, like when the doctor drops something under the table, they can see that even though they're clinically dead and they couldn't see in real life.
Because the blindness is only physical. Their retina or cornea is not working. That's why physically they're blind, but not spiritually.
That's right. That their soul can still see. Right.
Yeah, and the most I think one of Stevie Wonder's albums is called Inner Visions.
I know. I
That's
know.
how deep
That's
their
a
world
great
is.
album. That's a great album.
Yeah.
Absolutely great.
And then Curtis Mayfield had the song that starts off, I am blind and I cannot see. You are there. You're petty evil. Don't bother me.
Ooh, I don't think I know that song.
It's
You
going
got
right
your
on for the.
you know your music there, Steve.
Well, yeah, music has always been an escape, always been.
Yeah.
So, what what else can oh yeah, speaking of being here for a reason, we were talking about Christopher Reeve. If you saw the Superman movie,
Yes.
Jonathan
I love
Kent says
this
to
one.
Clark Kent, "You are here for a reason, son. I don't know what
Yeah.
that reason is, but you are here for a reason."
Yeah, that's a direct quote. I know that movie well. I because that was back, when the HBO or whatever would play the same movies a lot too.
I
So
remember that.
yeah, you wouldn't just see it once. You could see it a lot of times because, there weren't that many channels and that was the first time we could rewatch movies, I think it was like even before VCRs.
Yeah, around
Um
1980, or the Channel 6 was the cable channel of the movies, as I recall.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And MTV came out around that time also.
Yes. Yeah, it sure did.
So,
But back when it was actually MTV.
oh yes, then there was VH, it was VH1. I forgot, and then now people don't even watch cable anymore. Really.
Yeah, I
It's all
know.
Netflix and YouTube Red.
Yeah, I know. Well, I don't watch YouTube Red, but I do watch a lot of YouTube. I'm a big YouTube.
Me too. There's no reason to pay for it. You just gotta skip the commercial. That's all.
Yeah, well, I pay for the premium, but I don't pay for the fancy one. I pay for no commercials, but anyway, I love it. I love all that stuff.
Anyway, I think you have three websites, don't you? You have
Um, I have more than that, but they've been all in different kinds of say because I used to have a business called Draw Success that was a training business. So that is still up there. I have the 365 days of in Aspen. That I'm not sure if that's still there because I had to do a big transition with my
it's there.
Google recently. I have one for my Duet Stories novels, which we haven't talked about, but it's a tetralogy, which is 4 books. That's kind of a love story, reincarnation kind of love story. It doesn't have the big mystery that the new one does, but and of course I have brownelllandrum.com and a few others, but different variations of the business.
Reasonswhy.com.
I have reasonswhy.com. Yeah.
So these are all the places where people can follow you. follow you or find you, right?
Yeah, yeah. And you can find me, again, if you're into this kind of topic about reincarnation and stories, My Life is a Trip Reincarnation Stories Facebook group is a great place to kind of commune with like-minded people if you're into that kind of thing. And if you have a story for our podcast, that let me know, because we're not looking for just like, oh, I was this in a past life, but like a whole story with a beginning, middle, and end. But we're always looking to add stories on there. And you didn't really ask me about the end. I mentioned it, but those are my most autobiographical stories that I've ever written. And that was a really interesting experience writing those.
Or autobiography stories.
Yeah, I mean they were completely autobiographical. They're a fictionalized version of something that happened to me. But they're free is what I want to mention, so that anybody that's watching this can get them, download them for free. And they're it started with part one, and then I wrote part two, and then I've got part three that I just finished a couple of weeks ago. So it's what I did, and I think you'll like this story, is I'm starting to write it and about this experience that I had, and all of a sudden I'm writing it. I thought I'm going to write it from the point of view of the upstairs, right? So that there's a team in this world up there, and as I'm writing, I'm realizing they're telling me who they are. They're real, and it became very surreal kind of experience. And they're telling the story of how they're trying to get two people on Earth to do what they want them to do, and the Earth people, and I'm one of the Earth people, are not following, not giving them the story they want. And so, like, how do they manipulate stuff from that perspective as much as they can without interfering to get us to do what we should do. So there was a lot of humor in those stories, a lot of like deep messages. There's a lot of different things in that. So yeah, so I want to make sure everybody knows those are free. And you can, get the link and download those and
Where
enjoy those.
where can they find that? Which one of the websites can they find that?
You can find it on brownelllandrum.com. I can also get you the link. Or if you're in the Life is a Trip group, you can certainly say, "Hey, wait a minute, what about Brownell stories?" I'm thrilled to share them. When you're talking about the childhood stuff, like I mentioned, there's some mention of that. And they're also just playful and fun and interesting. Like the second one I think you'll like is the tears is just wasting time while they're waiting for this thing to happen on Earth. So they come up with punchlines. They hear a punchline of a joke, and then they have to come up with a joke to fit the punchline. So they're doing like a joke in reverse, and it's really, really funny. So there, it gives you a perspective of what could they be like, those folks upstairs that are trying to, I call them traffic angels. Like, how do they get this person here and this person here together to do what they're supposed to do? It's a lot of logistics involved.
Yeah, because we're not supposed to know they exist. What, they throw a stone down there, send a bird with a message. How do they reach us?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, how do they? And that's kind of what the kind of a playful version of this.
Maybe see that there was a TV show with Michael Landon and Victor French about these angels. Remember that?
Yes, yes. Touched by an Angel, I think, was it?
Something like that. They had to come down, but I think they would take a physical form to it. That's why
Yes.
they would actually. And then I
Yeah,
think
no, I
about
thought
this
it was Touched by an Angel. That was a different one, but I can't remember now the name of that
Highway
show.
to Heaven.
Highway to
Highway.
Heaven. There you go. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that, I mean, we need more of those. Maybe something I write will. I don't think we have enough metaphysical stories out there. They try to
There
go
was
too
another.
thing.
There was another movie with Kelly McGillis and Timothy Hutton about a
I
couple.
love that movie.
Remember that movie? Yeah.
Made in Heaven. Yeah, yeah. I
We
love that movie.
never danced.
Yeah, you guys, you got that's
And
all right.
she came looking for him. He couldn't find her. He's like, "Well, kid, you're 30 years old. Today's your birthday. You haven't found her yet."
Yeah, and that was Deborah Winger playing the man, if you remember that.
Oh, that was her, really?
And she was married to Timothy Hutton at the time.
Oh,
You
okay.
know that trivia, but she was in that movie. She was playing. I mean, you don't recognize her at all because she's playing this guy with this
She played
voice.
Emmett. Emmett, the guy with the red
Emmett,
hair.
Emmett with red hair.
And I think
Yeah,
she also played
and
herself.
and there also, because of course, the one with the Lauren Beatty. Heaven Can Wait.
Oh,
Was a
sure.
freaky
Yes.
experience.
Leo
And,
Farnsworth.
and
Sisk.
Defending Your Life. Did you ever see Defending Your Life with
That
Albert Brooks
sounds
and Meryl
familiar.
Streep?
Who is
Yeah,
that?
and Albert Brooks and Meryl Streep, and they're on the side and they're going to court to defend like how much fear they had in their life, and they go to the past life pavilion and see who they were in other life. Oh, you got to see that movie. It's really cute.
Oh, yeah, Meryl Streep is a great actress. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just it's a really lighthearted, but then there's also really, it's fun. It's super fun.
And I also Will Smith and Charlize Theron play characters who were lovers in other, and they're superheroes, and they were lovers in other
Oh
life.
yeah.
I
Yeah, I
can't think of
forget
the
what
movie.
yeah.
You know what I'm
I
talking
forget.
about, right?
I know which one you're talking about. I've
Yeah.
forgotten. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot more, like there's a movie that came out a couple of years ago called Past Lives. And I don't know if you saw it. But it's about a Korean, this Korean boy and girl who were best friends when they were like preteens. And then she moves away to America and she ends up marrying somebody else. But then wants to, he never forgot her. And you think, okay, what they're saying is past lives is just who they were in the earlier part of this life, but then it gets into a little bit of a hint of, is there a past life connection between them? So there's a little bit of a tease with that. I think it's, I love as far as writing these kind of love stories because I write, when you read a love story, it's great. The couple gets together and then it's kind of over, right? I mean, you see all the things that they took together to get together. But if you could write that same couple in a previous lifetime in a different situation with different circumstances, in a different world, then you get to kind of meet them all over again. And then when you tie the issues they had then with today, and you're like, oh, wait, there's still, there's something they're carrying over, there's something they're learning, or in my case, a big mystery that's tying it all together. So it's fun.
Sometimes you can get in touch with these things by writing. I think you had mentioned in one of your YouTube videos that if you just put the pen to your piece of paper, you don't know if you're going to come out with fiction or nonfiction.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that if people are looking to figure out who they were in a past life, just start writing, and you never know. And that's why the podcast is so important to be fictional or factual because nobody's going to be judging you whether it's true or not. You know, in fact, my tagline for my novels is "Lose yourself in the fiction, find yourself in the truth."
Yeah, there's an intertwinement of fiction and nonfiction, definitely, and a lot of
Yeah,
fiction is based, like you said, partly upon reality too.
yeah, yeah. And there's truth in it, even if it's a fictional story, and if you start writing a story about something like in the end part three, there's a past life that the couple has. I'll be honest, I don't know if that was really a past life or if I was making it up. I also will tell you it doesn't matter, right? Because if you're having a past life memory, it's happening for now, for today, for you to learn something,
Right, to take
right?
take the ball and go forward. It was a football game. You're handed the football. Go forward. Try to make some yardage.
Yeah, yeah. So you're remembering that because you're supposed to, it's like, oh, wait a minute, you're having that memory. Oh, I used to be a pro football player in my previous lifetime. I can do this, and you might be a 10-year-old trying out for Pee Wee or whatever. No, I'm just, joking around, but you never know what it could be. But yeah, that's why you having that memory is either to heal something or to learn something or to propel you something or so write what comes to you and nobody's going to judge you whether it's there's another Facebook group that's very particular about can you prove it and da 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 da. And I'm like, who cares? It's a story, and you're learning something from the story. That's more important than whether we can prove it or not.
Personally, I found Facebook groups to be not so nice.
They can be not nice. My group is nice. I make sure of it. I make sure of it. I mean, I make sure that, I leave it open to a lot of different, like if somebody's like, you're wrong, I'm like, no, that they see it differently. We don't have to argue because then we're going to close the door on and learning something new. But you're right, it can be. They definitely can be.
Now, people can find you on YouTube also, right?
Yeah, I've got a YouTube. You can Google Brownell Landrum. You'll find me on YouTube. You'll find my website. There's also the Life is a Trip podcast, which is also on YouTube. It's mostly just the audio of the stories, though, and we're on all the podcast channels. And you can see me on other interviews like this one. And just I mean, whatever that a lot of the interviews are very different. They ask different questions. You did some different research that got me into answering some questions that I haven't answered before. So I like that.
I try to invest in you because this is about you. I'm trying to help promote you and put your name out there. So the more
Well,
I know about you, the more my viewers can learn about you.
well, good. Well, and I hope they get the stories and can read those too. And, whatever, whatever helps. Because I really do believe these stories can change the world. I do think they can open people's minds. And like I said, even if it's something like, somebody who's like really racist or really, against a particular country or whatever, and then they go, oh, wait a minute, I had a past life there. How can I still feel that way now? um, and you think, oh, well, if people are rich or bad, but then you find out you had a rich past life or a poor or, fill in the blank, you might have been through all these different experiences. It makes it harder to judge others, I think.
Yeah, it's we easily I know I easily judge other people, and sometimes you have to step back, say, wait, you're not so perfect yourself, you know?
Yeah, yeah, I know that's true. I got lots of flaws.
Especially when you spend a lot of time alone, sometimes all you hear are the voices in your head. You forget about what you think you're different than everybody else, and you're alone, and everybody else is like plotting against you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's like you say, it's not paranoia if they really are out to get you. No, but one of the things in my hero's playbook, there's a part about your flawsome is what I call it, like, looking at your flaws. And nobody wants a perfect hero. We like the heroes that have flaws. They're more interesting. And I really think that's an important aspect is like, wait a minute, I might sit there and go, oh, I have this flaw, I have this whatever this is, physical or behavioral or fill in the blank. But that might be the thing that people go, okay, I like her more or trust her more or that makes her more interesting. So, if you look at our favorite characters, they all have some kind of
Like
flaw.
Bruce Willis smoking a cigarette, his wife throws him out. He's drunk. He's living in his car, yet he saves everybody in the stadium.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, yeah, his flaws were really good flaws, as far as that particular, character.
You ever
Um,
see Hero with Dustin Hoffman? He saves the people on the airplane.
love that movie too. Yeah, yeah, that was, and he talked about a flawed character, right? And he was like,
Oh, oh, for Christ's sake! Oh God, will you give me a break? I have to go help these people now.
yeah, yeah, I know. He didn't. He went in begrudgingly, but he brings person after person. And that's such a. One of my favorite things in writing is irony, right? And irony is when something is super surprising, like a character is not what you think they are. And yeah, and he was so flawed. He's like, I can't be public, so I'm going to let Andy Garcia take the credit, you
Remember
know,
that? Yes.
So he's like, I can't be that, because he was going through too much in his life. He didn't want to be on, hailed as a hero.
And
Um,
Gina Davis falls in love with Andy Garcia, but she starts to figure things out because she's a reporter.
yeah, I'd forgotten she was in that movie. It's been a
Yeah.
long time since I've seen that one.
Yeah. Well, that was like in the early 90s. She was a big star. She was in Thelma and Louise and A League of Their Own.
Yep, yeah, she was, and in Tootsie
Was
with
she in
Dustin
Tootsie?
Hoffman.
Was it Gina?
Yeah,
Was it Jessica Lange?
no, Jessica Lange was the lead, female lead, but Gina Davis was in it. She was in the soap opera that Dustin Hoffman's character was in. Because I remember there's a scene where she's in her underwear and he's like trying, he's dressed in drag, right? Pretending to be a woman, trying to not look at her in the underwear scene.
Yeah, her name was Michael. That was the name of
Yeah,
the character, Michael. And
yeah,
Sidney Pollack was his agent, I think.
yeah. Michael Dorsey, but then he paid Dorothy Michaels, I think was his.
Dorothy Michaels, right? And Charles Durning was in
Okay.
love with him.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, actually, you want to see something like seriously profound about that movie. There, you can go on YouTube since I'm a YouTube junkie, and Google Dustin Hoffman Tootsie interview, and he's almost crying in this interview. He said when they tried to make him up to be a woman, and he's like, well, make me beautiful, and they're like, this is the best you're gonna get. And he's like, no, no, you can make me beautiful, and it had this perception, and they're like, no, this is as good as it's going to get. And it made him realize this really powerful thing, that when he looked in the mirror as himself as a woman, he never would have talked to him or her. And how many times in his life he ignored women because they weren't beautiful or they weren't attractive enough. And he's like, boy, he said it wasn't a comedy for him. I mean, it'll make you cry watching that interview. Because he's like, this is, I realized that I was only paying attention to women based on a certain appearance until I did that movie. And then I realized that all these women that I didn't get to know that had beautiful, incredible things to say that just I ignored them. Yeah, it's really.
There are men like that who put all their energy just in talking to attractive women. They won't have a conversation with anybody else. Their whole energy is focused on that.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what he didn't. And when he was confronted with the fact that no one man would talk to him as he looking like it's the best he could look as a woman. Yeah, it's yeah, there's a lot of depth in that movie. But that interview, you should look it up.
Yeah, no, thank you for letting me know about that. And anyway, is there anything else you want to tell our viewers before we say goodbye?
No, I've just enjoyed it. I've just really enjoyed getting to know you, and I appreciate being here.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the time that you gave. And I'm going to post this up on my YouTube channel.
Great. Sounds good. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Brownell.
Okay, bye.